Well, good morning. I appreciate you reading Luke 5, 1 through 11 earlier for us, because that is what this morning's message is based on, is Luke 5, 1 through 11. And I'm reading out of the New Revised Standard Version. Imagine, if you will, you're walking down New York City streets. On the street corner is a guy, "Come buy a gold coin, $1 for this gold coin." What are you going to do for a dollar gold coin? You're going to be like, no. And you're just going to keep on walking, aren't you? Well, believe it or not, a few years ago, there was a man offering $20 double eagle gold coins for $1 on the corner of Park Row and Beckham Street in New York City. All day he was trying to get anybody to buy these gold coins, but instead, everybody just walked right past him. Thousands of people walked past. Some mocked him, some jeered at him, some laughed at him straight out, but he didn't sell any coins. Finally, he said to himself, "I'm going home at 6 o'clock. I am tired. I got another 20 minutes. So 15 minutes till 6, a woman came up. And she meekly asked, "Can I see one of those coins?" "Sure." She looked at it, did the whole biting thing. I don't know why they do that. Unless you're a gold expert, you wouldn't know what that means. And she decided to reluctantly give him that dollar bill and walk away with her gold coin. Well, about 10 minutes later, as the man was just tired and ready to go home, guess who came back with two friends? And they bought all the gold coins he had. He paid $8 for the rest of his gold coins. Well, those gold coins for $8 are actually worth $160 at that time. So guess what happened the next day? That woman, her friends, and her friends' friends were all on the streets looking for this man who sold gold coins for $1. He never came back. They never found him. How many people missed out on that small fortune because they are originally unwilling to trust this man on the corner? Speaking of trust, tradition tells us that Jesus' disciples were young men, teenagers. We have the initial starting of the Christian church started by male teenagers, not necessarily the most energetic or focused group of people to start a whole new form of faith on, but Jesus knew what he was doing. He had big plans. We meet 3 of these teenagers today who have chosen the profession of fishing. Now, let me give you some cultural background here. In Jesus' day, every male child, if it was at all possible, was raised learning the Torah. That's the first 5 books of the Old Testament. And they learned it to the point, by the age 10, they had the entire Torah memorized. It's impressive. I can't do that. I have trouble memorizing 1 or 2 verses in a row. So they have the memorized Torah, and their dreams, their hopes, their plans for the future hopefully include being asked by a rabbi to continue their education and follow him. So if this didn't happen by the age 15, it didn't happen. And the boys had to do the next thing, join the family trade, which for these 3 men was fishing. So we don't think they were very good. I don't think they're very good fishing. Why? Well, they had empty nets. And empty nets are a sign of bad fishing. Now, it could have been bad fishing, could have been God's plan, but here they are. They've been fishing all night and the nets are empty. Now, I'm beginning to think these weren't very good fishermen, because here we go again in John 21:6 on another story. This is after Jesus' resurrection. They're out fishing, and what happens? Their nets are empty once again. So I don't think they're really good fishermen. That's my personal opinion. Didn't they just have bad luck? We don't know. But here they are, defeated, empty nets. They dragging them up out of the boat, and they're washing all the gunk out of them, what we call stick fish, when you catch something that you're not supposed to catch, like sticks. And they're washing them out so the next day they can ready to go out and hopefully catch some food. And here comes Jesus. Simon scrubbing away, and Jesus comes up. He had a whole crowd of people following him, the Bible tells us. And he's washing his nets, and Jesus starts talking, and Jesus steps closer and closer. Then he looks down at Simon and says, "Simon, put out a little way from the shore. I'm going to get in your boat." So Jesus steps in his boat. They put out a little way. Oh, poor Simon. He's tired. He's been fishing all night and caught nothing. He's probably a bit distraught because he caught nothing, because that means no money. And here comes this Rabbi Jesus, who propriety says he has to listen to. and he goes back in the water. Well, he doesn't have anything else to do, so he's sitting here listening to Jesus. And in his mind, he has to be thinking, enough, stop talking. Or he might be really enthralled with what Jesus is saying. But we do know, eventually, Jesus stopped speaking. And Simon's probably thinking, finally, I can go home and get some rest and put this lousy day behind me. No. Jesus looks at him and says, hey, put out into the deep water and let's go fishing. That's my version of Luke 5:4. Again, poor Simon, so tired, so ready to go home for the day, and now he's being told what to do, how to do his job as a fisherman by a land-loving rabbi. Poor Simon. You know, he had dreams as a child. He had dreams. A rabbi would call him, but not to go fishing after he'd been fishing all night. No, he wanted a rabbi to call him to go follow him and learn how to do this ministry. So now he's being picked on by a rabbi in his mind. You know, a while ago, BuzzFeed sent out some kids to ask adults what they wanted to do when they grow up. Let's watch this video.
What did you want to be when you grew up? Are your parents disappointed in you? I was BuzzFeed and I'll be asking why people gave up on them. What was your dream job when you were a kid?
When I was a kid, I wanted to be a chef.
Are you a chef now?
I'm a food studies major.
That makes no sense to me. What do you want to be when you grow up?
A taxi driver.
My dream job was being a lawyer.
What are you doing now?
Interaction design.
Are you a lawyer now?
I am not a lawyer now.
Do you even drive a car?
No, I cannot drive.
I really don't. No. So, what was your dream job when you were a kid?
So like most kids, I wanted to be an astronaut.
I wanted to be an astronaut.
Are you an astronaut now?
No, I'm actually a yoga teacher now. Like I'm a yoga instructor.
I'm still trying to figure it out.
Well, I wanted to be an architect.
What does that even mean?
Architects would design buildings.
That's all I need to hear, sir. Why did you give up your dream?
I lost interest in what I wanted as a kid.
That sounds like an excuse.
I research Amish women and ultra-Orthodox women.
They're trying to put me to sleep. Why did you give up on your dream?
I didn't really give up on my dream. It just sort of changed.
So what was your dream job when you were a kid?
I wanted to be a dancer when I was a kid.
Are you a dancer now?
I am.
Congratulations, you did it.
Thanks.
What do you want to be when you grow up, nerd?
When I was a kid, I had a million dreams. But one of them was to be a taxi driver.
So you're a taxi driver now?
I never did become one. It was a dream when I was much younger, and dreams change as you go through different things.
Do you have any other dreams?
I have a million dreams.
I think you can reach your dream.
Wow. I'm glad that you said that. It gives me more confidence.
Gives me more confidence. I'm glad you said that. You know, these kids were asking some important questions, and only one adult even gave a real answer, that gentleman at the end, except for the young lady who got to live her dreams out and be a dancer. You know, few people are lucky enough to discover what they're meant to do for their life and do it. Most of us just flounder along till we fall into a way to survive, or we fall into what we're supposed to be doing. You know, we think about people who ended up where they didn't belong, where they didn't think they were going. And I think of the homeless people living on the streets, the beggars on the street corners hoping for $1 from the driving by cars. We think of the prostitutes selling themselves just to make it one more day. We think of the drug addicts, the felons, the abusive parents. And I guarantee you, not one of them dreamt of growing up and being what they are now. They're lost. They're not where they should be, and they need Jesus. But they're not the only ones. As a man I know, he's a good man. He is a husband of a loving wife. He had 4 strong, wonderful men as sons. He's a jack of all trades and a true Alaskan. He could hunt, he could fish, he could trap. He loved doing outdoor stuff. Matter of fact, his business was being a guide for many years. He was good at what he did. Well, they had a dream as a family to become self-sufficient and not have to work every day. So they started another business. And in this business, it required the father to travel. So we started praying for the family that they would be successful so he could stop traveling and get back home and spend time with his family. Well, on one of these business trips, after he'd been successful for a while and they actually had money in the bank, he started looking to think, maybe I'm missing out on something else. And he decided to get himself a mistress. This man is now divorced. His 4 boys don't want to talk to him. He's living in a small apartment, unemployed, with his new baby and his mistress. He is now missing out on what Christ had for his life because he thought he was missing out on something else. And sadly, his story isn't true. There are thousands of successful people who race after what they think they're missing out on, only to find out that they miss what God had for them. You know, there's a song, Cats in the Cradle by Harry Chapin, and we see this little boy who wants to be just like his dad. And his dad's too busy to spend time with him. Well, eventually dad gets old and he wants to spend time with his son, but guess what? His son is just like his dad and he is too busy for him. You know, I love and hate this song because I have 2 grown children and I pray I spent enough time with them and that they will be good, godly mothers one day. The fact is, we get so busy racing after success that we miss out on life. Seldom do we become what we wanted to be when we grew up. And even worse, some may never become what God has planned for them because we are too distracted by either failure or success. Let's get back to Simon in the boat. He's tired. He's willing to do what Jesus tells him to do because he has to. We know Simon isn't alone in the water because the Bible tells us Simon complained, "We have worked all night but have caught nothing. Yet if you say so, I'll let down the nets." Can you imagine what Simon's thinking at this moment? He's a rough fisherman. He's not very happy with his rabbi telling him what to do. So they toss out the nets grudgingly and boom, they get the catch of their life. Now, if you've ever gone fishing, you ever tossed a line out and you get that fish on, there is nothing quite like that feeling. The adrenaline rush that you get when you get your first fish on is amazing. It's the wrong time of day to go fishing. He shouldn't have had any fish in that net. They've been fishing all day in the same spot. There were no fish there. They were just told where to fish by a rabbi who walks around teaching people. And yet, here they have the haul of their life. So much so that he calls in the other boats, help me, my nets are so full, they're going to break. So they fill the boats up, and what happens? Both boats get so full, they start to sink. And so Simon turns to Jesus and doesn't say, "Lord, what do I do?" What does he say? He says, "Lord Jesus, get away from me, I am a sinful man." The Bible tells us, for he and all who were with him were amazed at the catch of fish that they had taken. That's Luke 5:8-9. Simon had a come to Jesus moment. Now, we don't know what his thoughts were when he was tossing out those nets. But we know what he was thinking when he pulled him in. Oh man, what have I done? This guy is something special. Where before he was grumbling, but obedient, now he's confessing his sin. Something was happening that was impossible. You don't simply catch fish like this in the middle of the day, and never so many to where you're going to sink 2 boats. Simon recognized that Jesus did a miracle on a level unheard of. Overwhelmed, he tells Jesus, "Go away." Thankfully, Jesus didn't go away. No, Jesus had other plans. In his grace, Jesus instead fulfills his childhood dream of being called by a rabbi. He tells him, and James and John, "Do not be afraid. From now on, you will be catching people." That's Luke 5:10. Matthew also covers this in his book. He says, "Follow me, and I will make you fish for people." That's Matthew 4:19. Simon is suddenly given a choice, a chance to do what most Jewish boys dreamed of doing. When they had brought their boats ashore, they left everything and they followed him. Matthew also mentioned that he leaves his father as well, which could be distressing until you realize this is a proud moment for Dad, because he thought his sons didn't meet the level of needed education or intelligence to be called by a rabbi. And here they are, Jesus, the rabbi, the famous dude that draws groups wherever he goes, just called his sons to follow Jesus. So Dad is all of a sudden, my boy, he's a student of Jesus. It was a good bragging point. He wasn't sad that he lost his boys for fishing. He was proud that they got called by a rabbi. See, this is a joyful moment for the family. Christ suddenly gave them an opportunity to fulfill what they had been missing out on in life. Maybe not the way they expected, especially this late in life, but they got to do what God had in store for them. And soon they would discover what big plans Christ had for their lives. Through them, Jesus would build the foundations of his new church. Jesus had a big new plan for their life. Big plans. How many of you ever had big plans? I've walked into some places that the people had big plans with no planning. Jesus had big plans with intense planning. See, Jesus changed the direction where Simon and his crew had thought their lives were going in a moment. In their minds, their opportunity to be in the ministry had passed them by. They were middle-aged men. What? They're teenagers. Yes, but you got to remember, they only lived to about 40 then. So by the time they hit 20, they were middle-aged. They were already a part of the family business. They had settled in. They dealt with the situation in life. And here comes Jesus calling them to follow him and become a fisher of men? To become evangelists for his new church? Jesus had big plans for them. Jesus taught through words and examples. He told stories people could relate to, and he called them to action, and Jesus still does the same today. Some of us, like myself, grew up in the church. Some grew up in religious or spiritual homes. Some grew up in the streets. Some of us grew up in homes that knew no peace. And others maybe grew up in families that could be classified purely as 100% dysfunctional. The good news is, Jesus has big plans for you. Some of us may feel that our future has been decided and we are stuck living in our mediocre, unhappy, unfulfilling life. It seems all hope is gone and life is a drag, and we simply just have to live day by day. Jesus has big plans for you. Some of us may be successful. We might be living the dream. We might have a nice house, a great car, a job we love, the perfect family. But like my friend, you know something's missing. Yeah, you're right, something is missing. But it's not that person you're not supposed to be with. No, it's because Jesus has big plans for you. What are these plans? Well, I have to tell you, chances are it has nothing to do with what you think they might do if you're thinking it's about success. Jesus does not promise us money. Jesus does not promise us possessions, not an iPhone or a car. Jesus told Simon, don't be afraid. That means some fearful things are coming along. God tells us that he did not give us a spirit of fear, however. 2 Timothy 1:7 tells us God did not give us a spirit of cowardice, but rather a spirit of power and of love and of self-discipline. You know, growing up, we all wanted to be something. When I was little, I thought I was going to be a stuntman or a daredevil or in the military. Once I met computers, I wanted to do something that had to do with computers. I thought maybe even computer-aided drafting. So I started taking all these courses about drafting and computer-aided drafting. But you know what? God had different plans because I did not have success in that field, not even in the computer field. God had different plans for me. I did not find success until I started listening to the promptings of the Holy Spirit and committed my life to serving Jesus in his church. In my case, the Salvation Army. Here's the deal. God has big plans for you. But you have to be willing to trust him and maybe leave everything that you rely on. When those fishermen left everything and followed Jesus that day, they didn't know what the future held. They didn't have a copy of the Bible that we have to know what the future held. They knew they were following a man of God, and this was good enough for them. They soon discovered that Jesus was the promised Messiah and that he had big plans for them. Today, I can't tell you what your future holds, but I can tell you that if you put your faith in the Lord Jesus Christ, you will never regret it. Because the fact is, Jesus has big plans for you.